Consider something strange. Sometimes the life you want does not begin with a grand revelation. Sometimes it begins with making space. We say we want to grow. We say we want to build something. We say we want to get closer to our goals, our calling, our higher self. But too often, we give our time to distractions and then wonder why the deeper vision never takes shape. A lot of people are not lacking desire, they're lacking room, because important things usually do not force their way into your life. They have to be welcomed. They have to be made a priority. They have to be given space to breathe. And sometimes that space is not made with a perfect plan. Sometimes it's made with the first step. You start before you feel ready. You move before the whole path is visible. And in that moment, something begins to reveal itself. Welcome back, my fellow stranger, to another episode of Traversing the Strange World. And I'm your host, Isaiah Danbury. And this is another installment of Monday Mornings with Peace. This morning, I want to talk to you about making space for what matters, about priorities, and about procrastination. And about the strange but powerful truth that clarity often comes after movement, not before it. More often, the path becomes clear because you started walking it. You made a little room. You protected a little time. You gave attention to something that mattered, instead of giving it away to whatever was loudest, easiest, or most immediately gratifying. That is one of the hard truths about life. What is important is not always what is urgent, and what is urgent is not always what is worthy. A distraction wants your attention. A meaningful goal asks for your devotion over time. That's why so many good things in a person's life stay underdeveloped. Not because they are impossible, not because the person lacked potential either, but because the deeper things we're always getting pushed aside by the easier things. You do not drift into discipline. You do not drift into a meaningful life. You make space for it. Priorities are what you actually make room for, what you prioritize. If you say your health matters but never protect time to tend to it, it is not yet a priority. If you say your craft matters but you never sit down with it, it is not yet a priority. If you say your purpose matters, but your days are full of avoidance, noise, and delay, then purpose is being crowded. That might sound harsh, but it's also freeing, because it means your life can begin to change in very small ways. One honest act of rearranging, 1 hour protected, one distraction removed, one step taken, one promise kept to yourself. And often the first act is more powerful than people realize, because once you begin, you are no longer only thinking about the thing, you are in relationship with it. Now it has somewhere to land. Now it has some room to breathe. Now the next step can begin to reveal itself. That's where a lot of people miss it. They think they need the whole staircase before they take the first step. But in so many parts of life, you only get enough light for the next few feet. And that has always been true of meaningful work, of growth, of faith, and of creation. You start with what you can see, and in moving toward it, you often see a little farther. Making space is not only about being productive, it's about becoming available to your calling, available to your craft, available to the part of you that knows there is something more to be built, more to be healed, and more to be brought into form. This is one of the things I appreciate in the spirit of Rick Rubin's The Creative Act, which is a book geared towards artists and content creators. Creation is not always this loud, forceful, dramatic event. Sometimes it's quieter. Sometimes it begins by paying attention, by clearing out the noise, by becoming present enough to notice what wants to emerge. And that's not just true for artists. It is true for anyone trying to build a better life. A better life usually does not appear all at once as a finished blueprint. It reveals itself in pieces, in instincts, in glimpses, in small nudges that ask for your cooperation. But if your life is too cluttered, you will miss those nudges. If every spare moment is filled with distraction, if every hour is already claimed by lesser things, if your mind is constantly crowded by noise, then even the important things can pass by unheard. That's why creating space matters, because when you create space, you are sending a message. I am ready to receive. I am ready to work. I am ready to listen. I am ready to begin, even before everything is fully clear. And strangely enough, that beginning often brings with it more energy than what waiting ever does. A lot of people sit around hoping motivation will come first, but very often motivation meets you after you move. You sit down to write and then the words start coming. You put your shoes on to train and then the energy starts rising. You begin the task you kept pushing off, and then the resistance starts loosening its grip. Not always, not perfectly, but often enough, it becomes a law of life. Movement creates momentum. And that matters because procrastination is not always laziness. Sometimes it's fear. But creation rarely asks that of you. It usually just asks for the next honest step. Not the whole masterpiece, not the whole business plan, not the whole transformation. Just the next brick, the next page in the next morning, the next act of faithfulness. And when you do that, you are no longer standing outside of your own life waiting for permission to begin. You are participating in its making. So my fellow stranger, as you move into this week, ask yourself a simple question. What in my life actually has room to grow? What have I actually made space for? Because your life is always being shaped by what you give time to. It's always being formed by what you return to. And if you don't choose your priorities on purpose, distractions will choose them for you. That is why making space is not passive. It's an act of will. It's an act of creation. It is the way of saying that something matters enough to be protected. Maybe for you that means waking up a little earlier. Maybe it means putting the phone down sooner. Maybe it means turning off the noise long enough to hear your own thoughts again. Maybe it means finally beginning the thing you have been postponing because you were waiting for perfect clarity. But perfect clarity is simply overrated. A lot of life is built by people who were willing to begin before they had every answer. They made room. They took a step. They let discipline carry them until motivation caught up. And somewhere in that process, the deeper shape of the thing started to reveal itself. And that can happen for you too. Not all at once, and not without resistance, and not without uncertainty. But it can happen. So this week, do not think about the life you want, make room for it. Do not just admire the goal, protect time for it. Do not just wait for inspiration, become available to it. Because sometimes the first act of creation is not brilliance, it's space. And this week for the things that deserve a life in you. And we're going to end today's installment with a quote from Jordan Peterson. Imagine who you could be, and then aim single-mindedly at that. My fellow strangers, let's today make space for that one thing. Rather it be that thing that you've been avoiding that you know you need to do. Or that thing that you desire to create, to put out into the ether. Or a skill you would like to sharpen. A little corner of your world that needs cleaning up. Make space for it for a week. And then after that, make space for it for a month. After a month, look at how far you've came. And think about how much better you'd get after 1 year of making space for that thing. And see what happens. Alright, until next time, If you're listening on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you're listening to us on Apple or Spotify, like and save. And it would mean the world to me if you'd maybe share this with a friend or on social media. All right, my fellow strangers, thank you for tuning in to this installment of Monday Mornings with Peace. Until next time, my fellow stranger, let's keep traversing this strange world. Let's remember to make time for what matters. Let's make space for curiosity and make space for inquisitiveness. And let's also make some space for neighborliness, because we are kind of just cast into this life thing. Don't know a whole lot about it. So at the end of the day, we're all just strangers in a strange land. Until next time, peace.